So before we get started implementing the material effects, the outputs of this plugin, we should first get familiarized with all of the possible render targets that we are drawing to. So, first up is the deform render target, the deform RT, also known as the trample deform. This is something that the deform capsules will draw to, and the RG channel denotes the direction of that deform. You can also get the amount of deform by getting the length of this render target. So this gets used in things like, pushing little leaves around. It gets used in grass for trampling grass, so the grass will bend in a direction, this direction right here. And then in the B and the A channel, it'll kind of look a little bit funky. You won't really see it. We'll just look at the B channel. You can see that there is the same thing drawn, but it fades out quite quickly. And we use these as a velocity render target. So if I hit this piece of foliage here with my foot, you can see that it will jiggle until this fades out. That is the trample deform, also just known as the deform. Next up in our list is the deform input render target. So this one is essentially just each frame, what would be getting drawn to the deform RT just gets drawn to another render target. The reason for this is that we can then use that in particle systems. So when I, face plant on the ground, we move the leaves according to what is in this render target. So you can see that the balls will move these leaves around as well based on the input. Next up, we have the interaction bubble render target, which is just a vector field that gets applied once per character or once per big round object. And its main usage is for large foliage. So you can see that these reeds are moving out of the way of our character, and they also stay out of the way when we're stationary. But in the B and the A channel, we draw the velocity like we do with the deform thinger. And you can see that this does fade out quite fast, and that is what drives the jiggling of these reeds. So if I do this, you can see that they jiggle, and then when I stop moving, they stop jiggling, but they're still bent out of the way. And if I jump up and down, you can see that they will jiggle as well. Next up is the surface render target. So this is a height map in the B channel. This can be used for displacement. So if you've got like sand or snow or other, mud, you can see that this can be used to displace vertices. When they inevitably add some tessellation or some equivalent back into the engine, you'll be able to use this for displacement and whatnot. And then in the R and the G channels, we generate a normal map from that height map. So then you can actually tell it to affect lighting properly. So if we go to our world normal, you can see that I'm adding this normal map to the ground, as well as using the height map, the positive parts of the height map, to change the texture so it looks like it's been, disturbed and whatnot. Right, next up is the water render target. Now for the water render target, it is using those deform capsules. I like to think of them as solid capsules. So anytime that they intersect the water height map, they will be drawing to here. So the B channel is the height map. The B channel gets used for the displacement. Again, if there's tessellation in a future engine version, you'll be using that. For the time being, I'm just using a pre-subdivided mesh. Then in the R and the G channels, we generate a normal map from that height map, very similar to the surface render target. And so we add this normal map to the water's normals. We also use it to drive the refraction. So you can see that the things underneath the surface kind of wobble around. And you can also see that for two-dimensional effect, we can just offset the UVs using this normal map, essentially. And that's why this looks, you know, like it's submerged in water. But in reality, it is not. We're just doing a UV displacement of this texture. Now, in the A channel, there is a debug water surface mask. I'm not sure if that will stay there forever. I might move debug masks to a separate one entirely, but for the time being, you can just check where water surfaces are present. Lastly but not leastly, we have the wind render target. Now, for the wind render target, the deform capsules do not draw to this explicitly. However, we do very slightly draw the input render target to the wind, especially if things are moving really fast. So if something has deform capsules and is moving fast or is like really big, it will just naturally draw to the wind very slightly. So the R and G channel is the velocity of the wind, and, you know, so the direction and strength of the wind. And then in the B and the A channels, it is the velocity over time. This is essentially getting a fraction of the wind's velocity and printing it persistently to the thing. This is useful for effects like, you know, fog, like moving fog around. Or potentially if you want to do like ground debris that can like move around persistently. You know, so like I can blow these leaves in this direction without needing to use particles. So these are just, you know, these are just material cards on the ground that are getting blown around a bit. So very niche use cases for these ones, but, you know, I'm sure you'll find some good ways to use it.